Hey everyone, thanks for joining. In this video, I'm going to address much talked about topic in the community right now. Some people have been complaining about Friendship Stone being so hard to grind, and yes, if you don't do daily stamina refresh using gems, you are not going to get all the friendship to level 13 that you need. So the question is, what is at the stake if you don't hit level 30 milestone for all 6 friendship? Well, one of the rewards awakening for the free S rank unit Mystvearn. So the next question will be, is it worth your time and hard-earned gems for the refresh? Let's look at some details and then think about this together. So content for today, I'm going to touch on a third update for Dai 2 BEM, which is coming out soon. I'm going to show you how far I am in with a stone grind and kind of run through my thinking of how am I going to spend my time for the rest of this event. Then the ultimate reward, Mystvearn. I will talk about him. Some of the you might not know his kit, so I want to talk about that and see if he's really worth all that time. Now, usual disclaimer: this information is based on DQT from JP version, and it may not be exactly what we're getting in global. Please do like and subscribe if you found this useful. Okay, so I've shown this timeline for Die 2 in the first video. You can check it out the video from the link below if you want. But anyway, we are expecting last and final update from Die 2 series. We'll finally be receiving a Mystvearn as a unit and we can start upgrading him. It's weird how they did this, and I don't actually know why they just didn't release it in the very first part one and part three, and leaving it as part three. But yeah, it's very weird, but it is what it is. Let's talk about the Friendship Stone progress anyway. So looking at the Friendship Stone, I haven't been doing the gems refresh since the beginning of Die 2, and here's the status. So I had a lot of stamina herbs saved up, so even then with no refresh, I'm only about 35% of the way into the finishing it all. So still a long way to go if you want to complete all the missions, friendship point mission. So I have done the quick math, and I don't expect you to read all the details here. But this is, this event itself was 20, going to cost you 27,000 stamina, which is huge. And I'm nowhere near as enough to finish it all with just do the auto refresh from daily stuffs. So roughly speaking, probably I need to refresh at least 4 times every day. And then also there is a campaign that's coming as we've seen in the June roadmap. So that's gonna be sacrificed as well if I'm gonna complete it all. So and also, bear in mind that this event could come back like it did for a Die Part 1. So is it worth all this gem refresh? Now, assuming I refresh 4 times a day for the remainder of this spend, it will equate to about 3,500 or more gems. So the question is, okay, Mystvearn is one, but what else is at stake? Let's look at what is actually at the stake and we are getting in total at the end of the biggest grind ever in the history of DQT. So every friendstone, when you get to 300 of them, you will hit level 37, and as a result, you will get everything on the see on the left that you see on the screen. For the most important ones, I've highlighted in blue. So also indicated what levels you'll be getting them. So the first one is gems. So gems, you get 3 batches of 50, which isn't a lot considering each of them probably costs you 1,500, 2,000 gem equivalent stamina to complete. But you get some of that back. But of course, there is more to it, and either you get 5 of hero or dark claw shards, depending on the friend points. So that isn't a lot. You're not gonna, you're not gonna bust your ball for it. But there's also a rest of reward. Now, whilst I know it can stack, the amount is so small. If you just looked at that and then without the kind of the friendship icon token, if you ask me, is this all worth 2,000 gems? I would easily said no, right? So that's kind of given. So it's only a little bonus that we get on along the way. So the ultimate reward is the actual question goes to the actual friendship token that you see at the top that you get at level 37. So those who don't know, just to remind, each of these friendship token or whatever it's called can be exchanged for one of the items on the right. So up to 4 shards of Mystvearn and one swap each of hero or dark lord shards, both of which were 30 shards in a batch. So now things start to look a lot more interesting. So roughly speaking, for 1,500, 2,000 gems, you are getting 30 shards and all of those things on the left, or Mystvearn Awakening and the rest of the units things on the right. So I think what's really ironic is that less than a month ago, I had a lot of people screaming, shouting that the game was so dry throughout May, and in one video I showed this picture the front where all of us had so much stack of staminas that quite simply didn't know where to spend them on. So the tables are turned, and now we just need that extra stamina to finish this event, which I think is real ironic. So I think you might have figured out that you don't you also need to complete the friendship mission if you don't care about Mystvearn. So you could just easily complete 2 friendship missions to level 13, swap with shards and be done with it, and give up all of the things that it said. So it's all about whether the Mystvearn is actually worth your time or even thoughts on it. So let's find out. So Mystvearn, in summary, is a very specialized debuffer, as far as I can see from his specs, and he has a very wide range of a high probability stun and bind in one skill, which means that if a unit's weak or either of these, then it will be immovable for at least 1 turn on the stun case and 3 turns on the bind case, although you will still be able to use your actions. On top of that, it creates 700 damage toxic tiles that will do damage on enemies. So there are some neat tricks I can already start to think about. Combine Mystvearn, you can pull units into the tiles and do a lot more damage using say Sarah the Manslave, for example. So it's a little bit kind of interesting unit, and there are some really kind of nice ideas that we can think of to utilize it. So very interesting kid. So there's this really is main skill, to be honest, and there is a like a physical attack which has a good range, but this is really what you need to be using, and he will be using on auto as well. So you may be asking, well, he's is he kind of good enough though in terms of the defensive skills? Because as you can see, that specialized debuff of stun and bind, you need to be at the right and center to influence. So need to get quite close to the enemy. So you want to know how his defensive kit looks like. So that's so you can see on the second point that he's actually really quite decent in terms of defensive skills as well. The better way to put it, I would say, is that he's actually more annoying to kill than he's a tanky. Now I'll talk about one by one. So he's decent HP, but he's definitely not like top tier. He ignores damage that are less than 30% maximum HP. So this is an interesting one. We only seen this with Corvus in the past. So this one is the second one to have ignore damage that is less than X. So I've calculated, especially in the GVG or arena conditions, where the units gain the 30% extra HP and damage is reduced by 30%. This becomes really really shines in these arena conditions. And I've calculated something like 400 to 500 damage each hit will be negated totally. So you really need to hit it with something that's he's weak to, or non-elemental that's strong enough. The multi hits will suffer as well. So really limits the option, which is the reason why I said it's not that he's hard to kill, it's that he's very annoying to kill. On top of that, he ignores damage once at Awakening 5. So this barrier is actually quite a useful and important skill. So you really want to be max awakening him if you want to use Mystvearn. But you could kind of get away with Awakening 4 because also there's a 20% chance set to bounce randomly at beginning of the turn. Now, 20% chance feels low, but if you every time that this procs, or this kind of randomly gets selected, if you got a bounce or not. So likelihood about is that it's quite high for your by turn two to get a bounce is quite high, and even further, I think there's over a 50% chance that you get bounced by turn three if he's not dead by then, of course. But I think if it was set in a GVG defense, it's high enough that will an attacker will need to consider that in. Also, on odd turns, he gets defense and move buff. So that means that he's got like move 3 from right from the start, and he can move 4 on the turn 3, which is quite annoying. And also, defense increase makes it a little bit more annoying to use to the enemy. He also has an active skill which can reduce physical and martial resistance up, although this will not be used in the auto condition, so this won't be relevant in GVG defense. But rest of them are, and as you can see, if you're fighting that's really you need to that really limits your choices of attackers to kill Mystvearn. He also has a single target range 1 to 4 physical attack, which does decent damage, and it cannot be ignored. So again, that's adding to the kind of annoyance the Mystvearn is. So let's look at the strengths and weaknesses. So he's extremely annoying in GVG defense. You need to think if you got Mystvearn in your on enemy's defense, you need to think of following. So first of all, you need to think that if you got stun or bindy weak units, you can't get in Mystvearn's range. Also, spell DPS, you need to be careful as he might gain bounce. Also, multi hits unlikely to work, especially Mystvearn is geared for full HP. I think even I'm not sure about Godly Breath, but it might even ignore that. It's that strong. And then also it ignores attack once, so even if you got a heavy hitter, you at least need to hit it twice, which is really annoying. Also, he can't, he's resisting zap and zam, so together with the fact he ignoring a 30% or less HP max HP damage, you probably won't be able to use zap or zam attack on him. So, good example here is like Bianca. There's probably no way to kill him if you just bring Bianca, for example, unless that you get to turn 3. I can't think of any other ones off the top of my head, but yeah, as you can see, it makes it very limiting to what you can bring to Arena or GVG. So really annoying in GVG defense. Now, this one is out not relevant to GVG defense, but if he was to be used in normal RTA conditions, then he can still also stack up physical and martial. So physical, martial, bounce. The only one that penetrates through is breath. And this has no damage reduction on breath at all. So, breath is probably the one that, skill that you can rely on against Mystvearn. Also, Taxidal does decent damage, and play that together with a pull unit abilities, it can do a devastating damage. So he's a kind of seems like a really good kit. Let's look at the weaknesses though. He really doesn't work against heroes, as you can imagine, or anybody resisting to stun and bind. Now there aren't that many that resist both of them. I mean, Mystvearn himself, there weren't many. So you're gonna be, even if you're like average resistance to both, the chances are something like 75% to you get stunned or bound. If if you're even if you're not weak to either of them. So I think, yeah, just because of the hero meta, use hero Eldrick and solo, then Mistborn won't cause any issues. His damage is mostly reactive. So let's say he get you bind the enemy for 3 turns, but it has to wait to the enemy's turn for that tile to do damage, I think. So that's a long wait, and if it can move, then it can do damage, heal, whatever on their turn before it it gets a chance to die. So kind of it's something to consider. He's weak to charm, and charm isn't kind of weird one. It's getting more popular, and it will become more popular, I think. So yeah, it's not totally to be ignored. He has no damage reduction, so probably quite easy to kill with breath. And then also he has no much application in PvE. So altogether, I think it's a shame. Well, you kind of wish that he was actually total trash, but unfortunately he isn't. He's actually a great option for a new or free to play players, and especially in the GVG youth defense. And I'm seeing some good use in the GVG offense as well by some people. So yeah, unfortunately, that it might not be the answer you're looking for. Where I'll be saying, yeah, Mystvearn is total trash. You can skip it and just be done with it. Save your gems. Unfortunately, that's not the case. I think Mystvearn is actually a good unit that you need to consider full gem refresh on, but I can't really say you should or you shouldn't. It's kind of a choice that's left to each players. So here's my final conclusion and thoughts. What am I going to do, etc., or at least what I'm thinking to do right now. So I'm going to probably do a start gem refreshing, especially with the upcoming campaign as well. And we are so dry on tome and campaign, rank up mats. So I'm gonna have to start using the gems, which I don't want to. But I think also the next event coming after die would possibly require a lot of stamina as well, so just be warned. So I think, yeah, gem refresh is kind of worthwhile, and I'm gonna try to see where I end up in after 2 weeks and then adjust accordingly. I might stop refreshes with gems. I might use my stamina stocks, etc., but we'll find out about that. So my priority is in current thinking, and this might change, but I'm gonna try to at least awakening for the Mystvearn. So that is swap 3 out of this, and you get the rest from other events. And then the next priority is hero fragments. I'm already short of hero fragments, and we're gonna need more in the future as well. So I think that's gonna be my next priority. Now I'm a little bit kind of thinking whether it's this one should be number 2, but Mystvearn swap for Awakening 5, I put in a third. And then quite frankly, I think I'm gonna skip the Dark Lord fragments for the next update. And I think in the next update the friendship will be likely be easier to farm. So if I'm doing a gem refresh, I'm kind of, the way I'm trying to think of it is I'm saving a 30 fragment stones until later and buy it cheaper a lot later. Now this, because if you think about it, right, so there's no point getting Mystvearn like a year or year and a half later, but and if you're still playing this game a year and a half later, which is a big question, I guess. But if you are still playing, that 30 fragments and all of those resources you saw earlier would be a tremendous help then, and you can buy at like half of the cost. So that's a better deal than getting a Mystvearn 2 years later, which is why I'm a little bit kind of still debating whether I should prioritize Mystvearn and then ignore fragments also. But that's kind of the question and decision left to each of the players. I think either way, it's really good. If you go full awakening on Mystvearn, then you won't regret it. I think it is going to be a lot of good use. Or on the other hand, if you say, "Nah, I've got a really good box, so I don't need these Mystvearn," and then that's also fine. So I think choice is yours, but my current thinking is I'll try for Mystvearn Awakening 4, possibly 5, and try prioritize Hero Fragment. That's what I think. But do let me know what you think as well. That leads me to end of the video, and thank you again for joining, and hope to see you soon.